Remember, there's some pretty important information here in the disclaimer. You might want to give the video a quick pause and read it.
Hey everyone, Wakeangel2K1 here, and before anything, let's start with this image that was posted on my Reddit thread, showing what's going to be coming in the next wave of the Jakks-specific Sonic figures. This is good because, one, it means that the Jakks-specific Sonic line is continuing after the Blaze the Cat wave. I was afraid that they were going to either put it on hiatus or end it so that they could concentrate in the Sonic Prime toy line, but thankfully that doesn't seem to be the case. And looking at it, it looks like there's a chance that there might be a classic Knuckles in the 4-inch scale. I kind of thought that they were giving up on making the main characters in the 4-inch scale because the only ones that they made were Sonic, Mighty, and Ray. And aside from you know, they made Dr. Eggman back in the day, but that's because like you need a tall Eggman to scale with the 2.5-inch. So I thought that we really weren't going to be getting any classic characters aside from, you know, robots. So yeah, that hard-boiled Heavy down there, that's gonna be awesome. I'm actually kind of super hyped for Heavy King now, because I really did like the hard-boiled Heavy designs. But then look on the right, like, it says Unknown Wave, so this might be like a special release or something, but it's Metal Sonic 3.0. I never in a million years thought that we would get a release of Metal Sonic 3.0. I mean, who is that for? Like, the 15 people that owned a PlayStation Vita and actually played Sonic Rivals? I mean, I can literally count on one hand, and I wouldn't even need all my fingers, the Sonic games that I haven't had a chance to play, and the 2 Sonic Rivals games are them, because, you know, like, where the heck are you gonna get a PlayStation, a PSP, or a Vita? Nobody had those. Okay, so... Yeah, that being said, I just wanted to put this out there because I was making this custom that I'm about to show you guys well before this announcement was made, so it's entirely a coincidence that Metal Sonic 3.0 happened to get announced at this time. So, you know, just in case you're thinking that I might have been inspired by this, I was not. I was working on this before. So anyway... usually when I make a custom figure of a character from the Archie comic, I do a recap of their backstory, but I've already done that before, and I've kind of done it twice, because I also did a brief recap when I made, Metal, you know, like Metal Sonic 2.5, you know, the Proto Shard. So instead, I think this time, how about we do a what-if scenario? Like, instead of talking about the character's past, how about a potential future? Everybody remembers issue 50 of Sonic Universe, the last stand of Shard the Metal. Basically, the answer of, what if Metal Sonic turned good? But now I ask, what if this wasn't his last stand? What if there was no Pender's lawsuit? What if there was no mandate from Sega demanding that the comic status quo return to something more similar to the video games? What if we actually continued with this thread? So, as we all know, the battle concludes with Shard lying barely functional, his crystal badly cracked, as Metal Sonic realized that he could always just self-destruct and then reboot into a new body, while his opponent Shard only had the one life to live. But let's say that this isn't the end. So let's pick this up. Uncle Chuck and his team arrive at the ruins of Shard's body, and they're able to extract the power gem from his chest. It's badly damaged, and they're afraid that any vibration or other stress could cause the crack to get worse and, you know, shatter it. They can build him a new body, of course, but they can't risk putting the damaged gem back into it, because the stress of a battle, or even movement, might break it entirely. This is where we cross over with the regular Sonic series, where Princess Sally, or I should say Mecha Sally, was successfully defeated and without having been destroyed. They were talking about de-roboticizing her, But before that, they're able to reverse engineer her tech. And in so doing, they figure out how to use a power ring to enhance Shard's abilities. He's not as powerful as he is with the Shard, of course, but he's at least on par with Metal Sonic the way that he is now. Oh, and this is all black and white, but I would like to think that as a visual flair, when he switches into battle mode, his eyes would glow yellow, the color of a power ring, instead of red, the way that they had before. But just as they're discussing this, they detect Metal Sonic approaching. He's charging at the city at full speed, holding a massive amount of explosives. This is the consequence of the last battle. Metal Sonics realize that his body is disposable. He can blow himself up all he wants and just reboot into a new one. So they come up with a kamikaze strategy, as he just grabs onto a bunch of explosives and crashes into the side of the city. Nicole frantically goes into repair mode, but another Metal Sonic is already approaching. It turns out a battalion's worth of his bodies have been prepared in advance. Only one of them can be operated at a time, but every one of them is significantly faster and more maneuverable than any mere guided missile could hope to be. So they've adopted a war of attrition strategy. Metal Sonic is just going to keep on pounding them until there's nothing left to pound. The only thing that can be done at this point is to go to Eggman's lab, where the supercomputer that houses Metal Sonic's consciousness is kept, and take that out. The only two who are fast enough to do it are Sonic and Shard, and this is actually the first time that we actually see them go on a mission together. They never actually had a chance to happen on in the proper comic that we got. So they charge off and manage to infiltrate the lab, but when they get there, they're confronted by Silver Sonic Mark III, who's acting as the guardian of the Metal Sonic supercomputer storage device. Now, normally Silver Sonic would be slower and clumsier than Shard or Sonic would be, but since they're in the confined space of the lab, he actually has the advantage, because the two of them aren't able to make full use of their speed. We would cut back to Knothole City, where another explosion would rock the lab where Shard's gem is being kept. Nicole looking on in horror as the crystal shakes. Back on the battlefield, Shard feels a minor glitch from this, realizing that he's living on borrowed time. So as the battle goes on, Shard and Sonic get better at teamwork, and they begin to form a counteroffensive against Silver Sonic, which forces Metal Sonic to temporarily give up his siege of the city and boot himself up into a body that's inside the lab so he can support Silver Sonic. What would happen from this point would be a somewhat drawn-out 2v2 battle, but with Sonic and Shard on the back foot, as Metal Sonic and Silver Sonic Mark III have a much more experience fighting alongside of each other than Shard and Sonic do. But this is when Shard would realize that he can take a note from Metal Sonic's book, and he tells Sonic to head to the supercomputer as soon as he makes an opening, and he maxes out his power output and tackles Metal Sonic into Silver Sonic. With all three of them together, he activates his own self-destruct, destroying all three of the robots. Taking advantage of being the only one in the room for a moment, Sonic charges at the supercomputer that houses Metal Sonic's core consciousness, his programming. Outside the lab, one of the Metal Sonics in the kamikaze queue awakens with a start. Although he's not able to express emotion, you do get a sense of terror as he turns around and sees an explosion in the lab, with Sonic running out, having successfully destroyed the supercomputer that houses the backups for Metal Sonic's consciousness. At first, Metal Sonic makes a movement as if he's going to pursue, but then he stops, hesitating. He looks down, realizing that he now has only one life to live. No more infinite continues for him. Sonic manages to get back to Knothole City, where Shard already has a new body getting built, and he's talking to us through the computer monitor that houses his consciousness now. They will get a chance to reflect on the irony that now it's Shard who's essentially controlling his body from a distance like a fancy drone, and Metal Sonic is the one who has only one life to live. And I believe that this is where the status quo resets. Shard has been nerfed. He's not as powerful as he was before, but he's still around to be Nicole's love interest and to be as a member of the team. Metal Sonic is also brought closer to his version from the video games, as he's the only Metal Sonic now. He can't just blow himself up and then reboot in a new body like he's a one-man Borg collective anymore. And I believe that this is how the comic could continue, with all of these characters. Nobody has to be gotten rid of, and we aren't facing a constant escalation, which I think was the problem that we were facing with Metal Sonic. Because every time we were seeing Metal Sonic, he was getting more and more powerful, especially with this thing where he could just self-destruct himself and then be in a new body later that day. Of course, this isn't a role reversal, because Knothole City doesn't have the same kind of resources that the Eggman Empire has, so it's not like they can just keep rebuilding Shard infinitely. But, it's a last resort option. Perhaps a later storyline would have Shard have to self-destruct himself, knowing that they don't have enough parts to make a new version of him afterwards. Could be a thing. But I believe that this is where this little what-if scenario will end. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let's actually make the toy, which, is kind of what my channel is all about. Now, I think some of my more devoted followers will remember, back when I made that 3D printed Neo Metal Sonic head, I replaced the one that I had customized and stripped it all down back to its original features, and made a promise that I would use it to make a shard in the future. Well, here it is. I'm using this particular Metal Sonic head. For the record, yes, I did get a new Metal Sonic figure, and so a Metal Sonic is the base for the body, but now I have a pristine, untouched head lying around, as I use this previously customized head to make this custom. It's just I had this weird hookup with keeping this promise that I made 2 years ago, so there we go. Okay, so sculpting Shard spines. Shard is kind of an interesting character design, because it's clearly based off of Neo Metal Sonic's pattern, but, it's more, I don't know, how would I put it? It's more like a practical version of it, because the spines are shorter, and they're more back-swept, so they're aerodynamic. If Neo Metal Sonic spines are kind of there to look grandiose and like a gigantic crown, then this is actually a more practical version of it. If Neo Metal Sonic dialed back the ego a little bit. As you can see, I did this in phases. I made the two big spines on the bottom first, as well as putting a little bit on the sides to reshape the eyes to make Shard's more distinct eye shape, and then waited for this to harden before doing the middle two spines in the top. This way I don't accidentally mush anything out of shape while sculpting. Takes a little bit longer, but you get better results. Yes, the hard part is getting those two lines in the middle of his head to stay straight. That is not an easy thing to do. Fortunately, painting the yellow wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Back in the day, I would have gone insane painting this much yellow, but, since I had the yellow ochre from Vallejo, that stuff works so much better. It only takes 2 coats. If I had been using my previous yellow paints, I would have had to use 4 or 5. And even better, you can paint this yellow on top of the black, and it looks good. Otherwise, with the old yellow, I would have had to paint everything white first and then start putting the yellow on. Now, the arms and legs are where most of the rest of this work goes, and this is where the 3D printer comes into play. I made some models on Tinkercad of a bunch of shapes that kind of work. The shins, this was quite the adventure. I had to work on these things 2 or 3 times, because I wanted them to be able to go around the existing legs so I could still use the joint for the ankle. And it couldn't be too long or too short, and the hole in the middle had to be wide without being too wide. It took me 3 or 4 tries to get the ratio, but eventually it did work out. Then I just had to cut off the little knee spike that Metal Sonic has, sculpt on the knee triangle that Shard has, and paint everything up, make that dull gray that they cast a Metal Sonic figure out of into a more vibrant silver shade. And, those are legs. The arms, the first thing I did, of course, was modify the left elbow to bend forward so that he's not doing that little hand wavy gesture anymore. And then I carved off the existing shoulder pads and sculpted on Shard's new shoulder pads, the more square ones. This has a benefit of actually giving me more of the outward range on his right arm. Because if you have that Metal Sonic figure, you know that the shoulders, because of their asymmetry, his left shoulder can go almost 90 degrees away from his body, but his right shoulder, it's practically just a swivel joint. Like, you can barely get any outward movement out of that because of the way the shoulder is sculpted. So the way I sculpted the shoulders, now he has much more range in his shoulder. Until, of course, the shoulder hits the cheek, but depending on how you lay his arm, like, you get a much bigger range. That's what I'm trying to get at. The forearms are another thing that I 3D printed. For his left arm, I took the gun arm that I made for the issue 86 Metal Sonic, and I modified it. I made it a little bit thinner so that it's not so Mega Man-esque, and made it so that it would fit over the arm of the Metal Sonic figure. And a little bit of sculpting to smooth the transition. With a paint job, he got his good old blaster cannon with the the variable weapon thing that he has going on. And the right arm is completely original. I thought that I could modify the arm from issue 86 Metal Sonic for this, but it wasn't working out. I had to just begin again from scratch. It is an actual Sonic hand, the gloveless one that Corey gave me. Just sculpted on top of a rounded cylinder with the pad on the back to be, the metal Sonic arm. So yeah, there's Shard's nice little cylinder hand that he has going on. So with the arms done, the torso had a little bit of sculpting. I filled in the jet intake on the belly and sculpted on the little crystal shard that's on it. And we had all the parts. So put together, we have Shard, the metal. Shard, the good Metal Sonic. Oh man, I really do miss this character. I know Gemerald is kind of a spiritual successor to Shard, but I just really liked Shard as Shard. He had the whole, the important thing was his whole backstory about how he was the Metal Sonic, the one introduced in issue 25. He was that Metal Sonic. And he had the whole arc where he sacrificed himself to save Sonic and Tails from the erupting volcano, which was a parallel to Hyper Metal Sonic melting in the lava after saving the president in the OVA movie. This is there's so much more story here. What is Gemerald? Gemerald is an old robot that Dr. Robotnik repurposed to try to take over the world, and Tails got all of Eggman's nasty programming out of him and made him peaceful. So, sure, it's functionally similar, but he's just not as compelling. Maybe if they make future games that focus more on the Jizoids, but, I do like him in the IDW comic, don't get me wrong, but he's not Shard. He's a completely different thing from Shard. But yeah, I've just been ranting at this point. So let's end this with this shoulder-to-shoulder shot of all my Metal Sonic customs. From the super simple one on the left, which is just painting Metal Sonic to look more metally, to issue 86 with the original 3D printed head, to Neo Metal Sonic. Oh, by the way, I put them in chronological order of their appearance, not chronological order of when I made them. And now the new Shard figure. Just wanted to have that little progression. And no, I'm not counting Mecha Sonic or Uncle Chuck, because even though they're hedgehog robots, they're not Metal Sonics. So yes, thank you all for watching this video. Let me know if you like the little what-if scenario that I had going on, and if you want to see me do more stuff like that, because it was actually pretty fun to do all that drawing again. You saw me post my Captain N comic on my DeviantArt page a few weeks ago, so, it kind of gave me the itch to have my artwork back out there, because, making so many custom action figures doesn't really give me too much time to draw. Anyway, once again, thank you all for watching. This is Wakeangel2K1 signing off.
Oh, hey everybody, it's me, Sonic the Hedgehog. Just here to remind you that if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button. And for even more amazing customs, don't forget to subscribe to Wakeangel2K1, because between you and me, they're way past cool.